Welcome to All Today. We are back yet again. How are you guys this week?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm all right. How about you, Setzer?
Doing fine, doing fine.
Yeah, hanging
Haven't
in
had a
there.
lot of time to play video games this week, though.
No, not a lot of time. Too busy with life.
Mm-hmm.
What are you, some kind of loser?
I know.
Who doesn't have time for video games? For real.
When we're big
Especially
enough,
these days.
yeah, when we're big enough for merch, we have to make a shirt that's just Setzer saying, "I haven't had much time to play anything this week."
Oh,
Yeah.
we got to start advertising. We want to get
That's
big enough for merch, boys.
that's it seems to be a weekly refrain. Not that I can blame.
No, well, no, as weekly friend, I don't have a lot of time for games, but this week I played Halo 5.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah, I
This
was.
week,
I would love to hear his
this week
opinions
I
on Halo
played
5.
Halo Spartan Assault on my Android phone,
Oh
and
yeah.
here's what I thought.
This week I played
Oof.
this Kingdom Hearts mobile game, and I've got 20 minutes of story conversation to have.
Halo
No,
Wars 2. They made a second one.
it's called Halo Infinite.
Nice.
Oh yeah, they did make a Halo Wars 2. I get it confused with Gears Tactics, so I don't know why they make these.
Very
These,
different games.
I'm sure.
Well, yeah, Halo Wars is a real-time strategy game.
And what's Gears Tactics? Is it like
It's
a
an
Final Fantasy
XCOM.
Tactics game?
It's an
Yeah.
XCOM game, which honestly seems like a great fit when you think about how XCOM looks and plays these days. Like, oh man, a game where people crouch behind little walls and have big bulky space outfits and shoot aliens.
So Cheston, what have you been playing this week since Setzer has been too busy?
Yeah, I've started or continued to bring Fallen Order to a close, and the more I play of that game, the more I enjoy the combat elements of it and, some of the story elements a little bit more. But, and maybe Setzer will chime in his thoughts on this, I am starting to grow very weary of the Metroidvania setup of the game. I'm starting to view it as padding for a game that could have been 10 hours. It seems like they made it a Metroidvania just so it could last 20 hours. And what I mean is there's just a lot of moments where you finish this big, exciting set piece, and then your next objective is return to your ship. And then you have to walk all the way back to your ship, and there's no new discoveries on the way. There's no, interesting things that happen on the way. You just literally have to trudge exactly where you came from, the same exact way, and then you get back on your ship, and then the game resumes. So, I don't know.
That was not my experience at all.
Really? You
Yeah.
didn't find?
Yeah.
Okay.
When I played the game, I focused on getting to the objective in the first place. To find this thing, beat this boss, blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
And not a lot of exploration. So when the game told me, okay, it's time to go back to your ship, I always had another path to take back to the ship. I always had stuff to find on the way there. And generally speaking, when you come back to a planet, you do have new abilities, like push and pull are big ones. When you go back to that first planet, I can't remember its name. The
Braca?
one with the... What?
Braca?
Is that the one with the... I know Zepho has ruins too, but is Braca the one where the master was hiding out?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the giant frog.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
Ogdo Bogdo.
all of
So
those
like
things.
when you go back to Braca, and you have push and pull, you can really open up some new paths. So in that sense, I didn't really have those complaints at all. Where I do kind of agree with you is going back to those planets in the first place does start to feel a little bit like they didn't have the time or budget to
Right,
create the assets for a whole new planet,
right. And
which,
you end up with 4 planets, and
yeah.
you know it's whatever. The first time you
Mhm.
go to it, they're all pretty fun. But then it's like, all right, we're gonna go back to Kashyyyk, and it's like, really? Do we? We're gonna go back to Kashyyyk?
Well,
You
didn't
couldn't
you
think
know
of
how
anything
important
else to
Kashyyyk
do?
and the Wookiees are? Yoda told
I
you that.
I do hate the Wookiees. Kashyyyk is Kashyyyk is the map I was thinking of specifically when I was complaining because Kashyyyk has some really great moments, like when you first arrive and you intercept one of those uh, AT-ATs
Mhm.
and you hijack it, and that's a lot of fun. And then you have in the second time around, you have a big conflict on top of the Tree of Hope, and I think that's a great moment. And then
Mhm.
it's like, all right, now you're gonna mosey on back the way you came, and just I'll see you. And it's like a 20-minute walk, and I love Metroidvania, so I'm not averse to backtracking. I think specifically the way this game is set up, split across 4 very different planets. I just feel like the Metroidvania elements compared to the combat feel a little half baked to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's not the most perfect execution of the
No,
concept.
yeah,
That being said, I don't remember a lot of, taking the same path back to where you came from or whatever.
yeah,
It has been a year since I played that game, so it
yeah.
may be just something I forgot about because I remember that game pretty fondly. But yeah, I definitely agree that there could have been more time spent on a planet and then you're kind of done with it. There's a part towards the end of the game where you go back to Dathomir, I believe,
Hmm.
and I kind of felt like this was not very dramatic narratively, and it wasn't really interesting from a gameplay perspective. It's almost like they forgot these events had to happen, so they were just like, oh, just put it in real quick right here, and then you can get on with the story, right?
Are you talking about the time where you fight all the zombies?
No, I'm
Okay,
talking about the
this
time. Do
maybe I
you?
might not be there then.
Okay, yeah. That's what I'm trying to avoid.
Okay, yeah, no. I think really what hurts it most of all as a Metroidvania is that I think about Hollow Knight or Super Metroid, which would to me be the hallmarks of that genre.
Mhm.
And those are games where you have a lot of moments, especially early on, where you're exploring and you'll go very far in one direction and then you'll bump up against a wall and you'll be like, oh, I need something and I don't know what it is. And eventually you find it and you have this moment like, oh, yes, I'm going to go back and finally figure out what's behind this. And I don't feel like this game has a lot of it. I mean, there's a lot of walls with holes in them. And every once in a while, you'll run into one early in the game and be like, I guess eventually I'll probably be able to force push this open.
Mhm.
But it's not, I think maybe it's because of, I don't know, how big some of the areas are, or, you know, maybe just what a chore it can be to get around some of the areas. There was never this idea when I got something like, oh, this unlocks this area and this area and this area. It really at the end of the day, it's 4 very big disconnected maps that you go to for very linear seeming adventures, and then you have the option to explore, but it's not really. I don't know. To me, it doesn't feel as emphasized as it would in an actual Metroidvania. So I
Yeah,
think it was an interesting choice, and I respect them for trying it because I think it would have been very easy just to make another Force Awakens type or Force Unleashed type of
mhm.
game where it's
Same
just
difference.
linear level after linear level after linear level, and boom, boom, boom. And I think that would have been a lot of fun, but I think it would have been like the easy choice. So I guess in some ways I'm like, it's cool that they did this, and I'm always gonna stand for a game with a double jump at some point. I think it's great that double jumps are now canonical in the Star Wars universe.
Mhm.
Well,
Um,
spin
but
jumps were already canonical.
Well, the double jump is kind of a spin jump, but it's a great. When I got the ability, I was like, they're not going to add a double jump. That'd be such a silly thing in this game specifically. And then you have your character remember this lesson where his master's like, yeah, but what if you jump twice? And you're like, oh, sweet, yes.
Why didn't
They
Luke jump
went for it.
twice? Would have been helpful in that
He,
Sarlacc pit
yeah, he
scenario.
probably
He
should have.
did double jump out of the carbonite pit.
Oh my God. It's been there the
Yeah,
whole time. George Lucas is a genius.
I knew it. I knew it all along. But yeah, I still think the game overall is a lot of fun. I think I am ready for it to be done, though.
Hmm.
Just from some of those Metroidvania gripes, honestly. And the story is kind of seems like it's spinning its wheels, so it's ready to conclude. Like they're just trying to see as much as they can get off of this game before moving on. Because,
Hmm.
like I said, I'm fighting like zombie-like things, and I'm kind of, it's kind of fun mechanically, but at the same time, storyline-wise, I'm like, all right. I feel like at this point we've exhausted this specific branch of the Star
Yeah.
Wars universe.
Yeah, I'll say, we'll probably talk about this more after you've finished the game, but I do agree with you that the game is light on story. Um,
Yeah, it's
and
kind of
it,
like a
and
Kingdom
it,
Hearts game.
Wait a minute.
it's carried by, I think the characters, the core gameplay, the aesthetic, because it's a good looking game other than the
Hmm.
Wookiees.
Yeah.
Those
Oh, yes.
stick out like sore thumbs.
They look terrible.
And I think, kind of the presentation and what they tried to accomplish is very admirable, even if they
Hmm.
didn't get it all the way
No.
there, you know.
Yeah.
So I think this game is ripe for a sequel,
Yep. Like I
and
said last
we'll
week,
almost
that's going to
certainly
be a
get
good
one.
sequel. It's going to be
Hmm.
a good sequel if they get it. And I think they are working on it. So
Yeah.
I think that'll probably be something they at least show next year. So I'm very much looking forward to
Never count
that.
on EA. Never assume it's going to be a good
I know,
sequel.
but Respawn has become one of their favorite sons now because of this and Apex. So
But this was a game that was successful, so they could meddle with it.
they
Hmm.
could they could meddle
They could
with
be
it. They
like,
could
all
try
right,
and force.
microtransactions, baby.
Yeah, they could try and force something weird on it. But I'm just gonna hope that they let Respawn do its thing.
Yeah, let's be positive for once. I'm sure it won't bite us in the
Yeah,
ass.
Well, I
yeah.
will say this. I think the Star Wars license in particular is on a bit of a short leash after the Battlefront 2 loot box fiasco when, people started to associate a Disney property with child gambling. Um,
That's true. Good
so
point.
I think that, when it comes to stuff like that, they're being a little more hands off. Squadrons, no microtransactions whatsoever, no DLC, no nothing. You buy the game, and that is that. That's the end of it.
Oh, I'm sure it kills them.
Yeah, yeah.
They
but
hate
uh,
it. Oh, it just burns at them.
but hey, it's good for the player, right? So
What's good for the goose is good for the gander, I say.
that's right. You build that reputation back up, and then you can abuse people with microtransactions. There you go. Cheston, what else you been playing?
I played and finished a game since the last podcast, believe it
Yeah.
or not, because I couldn't stop playing it, and it is a smaller game called Katana Zero. It is
Hmm.
on Game Pass. It came out on Switch and PC last year, I think, in kind of summer, and it was one of those games I had on my watch list because I just saw the trailers and thought, wow, this looks really unique. And then eventually it just came to Game Pass, so I was like, well, I have the subscription, so I'm gonna play it. And I think, Derek, this game has your name written all over
You
it
did
in
suggest I play it.
literally every regard. Like, so it's like Hotline Miami,
Hmm.
which is a game you liked
I do
quite a
like
bit.
it. Yeah.
Except for instead of being weird psychopathic murderers, you are a samurai.
Oh, you lost me. I hate Japan.
Yeah, true. You're known for your hatred of Japan. And it is a game that I would say, how Persona is synonymous with style. This game is style from head to toe. It's much like Hotline Miami. It has a bit of a neon aesthetic to it, which is enjoyable. Because the setup for the game is that you are this samurai who often he's basically he's a hitman, and he gets contracts to kill these individual people. And so you'll invade these various places and you will have to assassinate these targets. And you have this special ability, this precognition, where you can see things before they happen, which is how they justify the fact that you can fail and then retry these stages over and over and over. And so they frame it like a security camera footage. So they have a lot of like VHS tape type effects, like someone's popping in security tape footage
Hmm.
from these incidents, and that aesthetic is a lot of fun.
So
Um,
very much like Hotline Miami then.
yeah, yeah, very much like Hotline Miami. It also, tying in with that and the precognition, your character has the ability to experience time more slowly. So this creates a really neat sound and visual effect when you slow down time. And the main reason you do that is to deflect bullets, because you're basically like a samurai Jedi. So one of your main mechanics you can use to escape a puzzle room, or escape a conflict, is to slow down time and deflect a bullet right back at the enemy, which is just always satisfying no matter how many times you do it
For
over the
sure.
course of the game. And it is just so unique. It is, and I think my favorite thing, oddly enough, because I love the gameplay. I mean, it's a lot of fun to play, but I think my favorite thing about it is the way that it tells the story, because it tells it through these, adventure game-esque dialogue trees that will occur when you're talking to characters before or after missions. And it's kind of like those early Walking Dead games where you'll have that timer where you only have so long to say what you're going to say, or the game will choose for you, or you'll
Hmm.
just say nothing. But this one has a little red line which takes up the first quarter of the bar. And usually there's like a red interruption phrase you have. And once the little timer elapses past that line, then you get all the dialogue options. So it gives you a lot of freedom to role play the situation and be like, okay, this person is kind of giving me a hard time. Maybe I'm not even going to bother to hear them out. I'm just going to interrupt them and say this thing and derail things. Or I can wait out and then I have my dialogue tree options and I can see what they say in return. And that system ties, again, it ties in with the fact that your character has precognition. They play with that in a lot of really fun ways. It is just a cool game, and it's really hard to summarize it because, like I said, I finished it because I was sitting here on Friday night and I started it halfway through the game, and then 4 hours later I was like, well, I saw that game through. I literally could not stop, because once it got going, it was just so grabbing. Just really crazy game.
Well, it sounds interesting. It sounds like it'd be right up my alley. You're right
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, and it sets up for a sequel. I will say the story is, I think, more interesting than it is good. It has some of the, what I would call, indie disease, where sometimes it just tries to be maybe more obscure than it needs to be.
What do you mean by
Sometimes
that?
well, I mean, I think a lot of indie games will set up a very interesting premise and will set up a very interesting narrative, but they don't know how to pay it off. So a lot of times they just don't. Like, they don't have an ending, or it's
Oh,
just
okay.
very abstract. Like, I think Inside is a game I mentioned before, or Limbo, which is a game I think is highly overrated, is, those games had a narrative that was kind of grabbing, and then you got to the end and it's like, all right, now what? And this game does kind of end like that, where it's like, wow, it just feels like they didn't write an ending. But it is extremely interesting throughout, and it led me to dig around online to look for various conversations that people have had trying to piece together what's happening here and there. I just really think it is a special kind of indie game. One of those perfect little games that is just exactly as long as it should be, is just as unique as you'd want from a game that doesn't have, big corporate backing, and is just really a lot of fun. from beginning to end.
Well, that's quite the ringing endorsement.
Yeah, I highly recommend it to everyone.
If it's like Hotline Miami in some ways, then I won't give a shit about the story. So I really don't care if it goes anywhere.
I
So,
I would I think you will be intrigued. I think it does some interesting things.
all right. Usually when I play those kind of things, I'm not playing so much for the story as I would in other things.
Well, I
So
was not. I was not coming for the story, but as I played more, it was the thing that really started to grab me.
interesting. Well, how long would you say it is? Like 2 hours, maybe?
Oh no, it's longer than that. I'd say it's probably somewhere around 5 hours.
I see.
Yeah. So,
Well, I could go for some
just
shorter things.
long enough that it doesn't overstay its welcome. The mechanic itself, like, the combat isn't especially complicated, and it doesn't really get that much more complicated the more you play. So if it went too much longer, it probably would have been grating.
So it
But
knows when to get out.
yeah, I think so. And it actually even leaves you wanting a little more because at some point they have a slight twist that has you playing very differently for a mission, and you only get to do it like that for one mission, but it's really neat, and it makes you wonder. It shows you that they could do some things with the sequel. Like I think there's room for it to grow, um, but yeah, they other than that they don't really flesh it out much.
You
So
should play a Hideki Kamiya game because they're full of stuff like that.
yeah,
Yeah, like,
uh,
Wonderful 101 will have like one level that plays like nothing else in the rest of the game. You're like, oh,
yeah.
okay.
Well, actually, there's a few levels like that, and every time it happened, I was like, man, there's no way they're gonna let me play like this. It's like, wow, they really are. This game just keeps giving.
It's weird when games do that because it's like, I can't believe they made a whole system for
Yeah,
just one
it's one
little
of my
level.
it's one of my favorite little treats. Is every once in a while a game will just experiment and branch out, and I always appreciate when they at least try something new for maybe just. I mean, sometimes it can be terrible, but sometimes they'll do it for just one mission. And you'll be like, oh, I play more of that.
Yeah, yeah. Bayonetta has stuff like that too. So basically, you would appreciate Kamiya games. Okay, well, to start off, I finished Yakuza 7, aka Yakuza Like a Dragon, this week. It was a lot of fun. I was kind of ready for it to end when it did, though. I feel like simplistic RPGs kind of, I don't know, they wear their welcome after a while. Like you're like, all right, I kind of get how this is going, and there's not much to the combat. Let's finish this. I don't know if have you ever played a simplistic RPG like Stick of Truth or Mario RPG or anything like that before?
I haven't played those, but I was gonna say that's pretty similar to how I felt about Final Fantasy 12.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, this is a little less complicated than FF12. You showed like the most complicated one,
Not
but
really, not if you're good at setting up the gambits.
and I am not. So I guess that is why I feel that way. But I mean, it's similarly where it's like I know how the combat works. I'm ready for the end because like at the end of the game, I was pretty much just using the same couple of abilities and restoring my MP, and then going for that. So if whenever they make the next Yakuza and if they keep the turn-based thing, I hope they flesh it out a little bit. For early on, the simplicity is fine, but when you're into hour 40 and you're going through a dungeon, it's like, okay, I get it. I understand where you're going. So I felt the story and characters were really solid. Like, I think the main character, Ichiban Kasuga, is one of the most likable ever. And, the game actually tries to pull emotional strings, and I think it pulls it off at the very end. So very few games, I think, are able to convey, like, get you to feel something. And I think they do a good job of
Hmm.
it. Yakuza is kind of known. They pull out like wacky plot twists. So I won't get into it enough where I need to spoil things, but I'll just say that the main plot twist in this game involves two babies being put in coin lockers simultaneously. So it's really strange and bizarre, but I enjoy it. Um, I so if you're out there and you've always wanted to get into Yakuza games, Like a Dragon is one of two I would say you could get into without playing any others. Zero is the other one. They both play completely differently, so if you don't like RPGs, Zero is definitely the better one to go with. And if you do, Seven is good too. Go. One thing I forgot to mention is that this is the first Yakuza game in a while that has an English dub. Since Yakuza one and maybe two. I don't know if two did or not. I guess it's because the game was gotten a lot more popular in the West. So I was kind of apprehensive about it because the early dubs are really bad. um, but this was actually really good. Every
Really?
character, yeah, every character's voice fits. You know, it feels like a really well done professional presentation. Like, there's no like super cringy voice work. Like I was expecting, like, oh god, like my wife's in here. I gotta like pretend this, like I'm not into this junk, but it was actually really good. I had no complaints about it. Even there's a character named Goro Majima from who's been in the franchise for a long time. To give you an idea of what this character's personality is, in Yakuza 1, he was voiced by Mark Hamill doing the Joker voice. So he's like a zany character.
Like patches.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's like random XD so wild. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
And so like I was worried they were gonna give him like some stupid it's hard to do that character well when he's not in Japanese. So this guy is voiced by Matthew Mercer, who you would probably know as Yusuke from Persona 5. Kind
I
of
know him as the Critical Role guy.
oh well,
Does he
okay.
really voice Yusuke?
Yeah, he voices Yusuke. Yep. And
Huh.
interestingly, he also voices Luke Skywalker in Battlefront 2. So,
Huh.
so a little crossover there.
Yeah.
But I Yusuke Kitagawa is more of a low key kind of character, like
Hmm.
very soft spoken.
Hmm.
So very different, but he pulls it off very well. Like it's actually a very impressive performance. So every character I was concerned about has great work. So um, if you are apprehensive about playing this very Japanese game with an English voice work, it is very natural feeling. So there you go. So the other thing I've been playing, I've played some PS5 games.
Oh my gosh.
finally, finally,
Whew.
I've played all of like 2 hours of Miles Morales, so I don't have much to say about that other than it's very good looking, I suppose, and it's more Spider-Man from the PS4 game. So if you like the PS4 Spider-Man, you'll probably like Miles Morales. I will also say that every character looks really good except for Peter Parker, who looks like shit. looks like a discount Tom Holland, um, which is probably what they were going for, I guess. But it looks awful. I also tooled around with Astro's Playland, which is the free game that everyone gets with their PS5. In fact, when you set up your PlayStation 5, the auto downloads for you. You get a choice in it. Like you will play this game and you will like it.
I think it's
Um,
Astro's Playroom.
Whatever, who cares? The game should be called Astro's controller demo. It's all it's for.
Wow. Oh, harsh.
So I feel like this game has got a fair amount of praise. Got to be honest, don't get it. I think we're going back in time with this. Like I understand this is like a demo for the controller, like to show all the stuff it can do. But in my opinion, all the stuff it can do is really gimmicky and stuff I would not like in an actual game. so,
So you do
so
not like the adaptive triggers.
I could see the purpose in it in a slow-paced hunting game, like if you were playing like a Monster Hunter and they added like a bow and arrow class that was slow drawing. I could think that'd be a lot of cool. But if you're playing like Horizon Zero Dawn and you're like constantly mashing on the R2 button to fire arrows, the adaptive trigger for that would be so annoying. It's like I just want to play. I don't need the realistic feedback. I just want to play. So I guess it depends on the game. But so like if they made like a Cabela's Hunting 2 or whatever for the PS5, and I'm sure there's more than two Cabela's
Yeah, I
Hunting
would say that's
games.
very optimistic. There's only two.
But if they made one of those for the PS5, I think adaptive triggers would be fun there. But for like a first-person shooter, no way. That seems like anti-fun to me.
Okay, picture this:
Hmm?
WWE 2K,
Yeah.
and every time you push the joystick, it resists you
Well, they
because those
probably would do
games
that.
because those games are already sluggy as all get out.
They're already fighting back on you.
It's
Uh,
just now just actively fighting against you
yes.
physically. Well, I can say I'm not surprised that you feel this way. I was
Yeah. Yeah.
I was very curious to hear what you thought, but I kind of knew
Yeah.
because you've never ever liked any of this kind of stuff, not once.
Yeah.
Maybe outside of No More Heroes, when your Wiimote pretends to be a phone, You thought
Yeah,
that
that
was
was
cool.
cool.
And you were right, that was cool. But other than that, you've you've universally panned anything that is let's say
Gimmicky.
experiential. You didn't even really like we didn't have a rumble pack. Like I think is always a good point of reference. Like we have
Yeah.
never as a people cared that much about rumble or feedback.
Well, that's interesting you say that because I'm about to shit on your point. Um,
Wow.
the one thing I actually think is really cool that I would like to see more like dug into is the Rumble stuff because it's like the promise of the HD Rumble back when the Switch was revealed and everyone kind of laughed at it.
Hey man, I can
Um,
feel every one of those dice in Clubhouse games.
right. Well, it feels like it's actually a thing here. Like it feels like it was adding to the experience, the Rumble stuff. It's hard to explain, but it actually did feel like something. But other than Rumble, like a lot of it felt like six axis shit, where it's like, okay, I get it, like because like one of the mini games is like you're a monkey and you're climbing stuff. Like you get your
Yeah.
Astro Boy into a monkey suit, and that is so obnoxious to play. It's it's like you tilt the controller one direction, you press L2 or R2, which of course is resistant to you for whatever reason for when you're grabbing something. And so it's like also already like I'm doing more movement than I want to do with a video game. And then you're on these bars and you got to spin, so you got to shake the controller. I'm like, this is just like we've been here. This is Wii shit. It's just not fun.
So do you think in a year's time it'll be like Six Axis where every game will just abandon it?
Yes, no one will use this. And my big
Oh,
prediction is that no one will use this.
it seems to me like a lot of people like it because it's brand new and it's like ooh shiny new
Yes.
thing that the PlayStation can do, and then when you hear people who are just like there to play games like Call of Duty people,
Yeah.
like I've heard almost universally like nope, don't want this when I'm playing Call of Duty. Do
No.
not want these triggers resisting me when I'm trying to shoot.
No, when you're playing like a real game, these sorts of things I think would be a deterrent. I so if someone I see the potential, I see that you could make something interesting with these, but the question is, will anyone actually make anything that I actually want to engage with? And
And
the
your
answer is
opinion
probably
is
no.
no.
Probably not, but
Yeah.
you never know. I
Well,
mean, there
okay.
are I could see if they if done well in a horror game, like if they made a Silent Hill with resistant feedback, I think that would be pretty cool. But it depends. I don't know if someone will do that. So
Whenever the next time I get to see you is, whenever that may be,
twenty
given
twenty
things.
six.
Yeah, given things, I would love to play this because I feel like I will like it more than you, but I do kind of feel like it's just going to be a very novel gimmick that you know
Yeah.
runs its
Look,
course.
I think the technology is impressive, but I just don't think it's fun. But
Yeah. Well, did you enjoy the PlayStation fan service?
yeah, it was cool.
Yeah. That I was actually more interested in hearing about, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Well, I haven't. I've only like there's four levels, I guess. I've only completed two, so I can't comment on the whole thing. I do plan on finishing it because it's really not long.
It's
It's
like
more
2 hours.
annoying to get through than long.
You can turn off the haptics,
What's the haptics?
the controller features. You can turn those off
But then why play the game?
to
That's
see
the
the
whole
fan
point.
service. We just
Ah,
talked about this.
yes, but if I'm gonna struggle through it, I might as well play it on the level they want me to.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
But so far, like you get to the end of the PS2 level and you see like like when you turn on the PS2 and it has like that loud noise and those weird like
Yes.
cubes.
The cube world, or as I call it, Spider-Man 3.
Yes. You come up onto like this like cube background and you hear like the bong. You're
Yeah.
like, oh hell yeah. So
Yeah.
that was cool.
Yeah. You saw the Buster
I
Sword.
saw the Buster Sword and it's
Yeah.
like done like the FF7 intro screen.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty neat.
Yeah.
There's like a little Spyro plushie. I hear there's Ape Escape stuff somewhere in there.
I I want to
Um,
see. I want to know if there's an eye toy. That's what I want.
oh well, there's everything
I
because
want to
like
see the eye toy.
you unlock
A beautiful render of the eye toy.
you unlock some like I don't know trophies. I don't know what better way to call them. Like Smash Brothers trophies. You get like I got like a PS4 and a PS2, and weird like PlayStation Move controllers I had never seen before. Like it looked like Link's crossbow training.
Yeah.
It looked like one of those things.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember those.
Yeah,
I also
so
remember Link's crossbow training.
so it's a neat little history thing
Yeah.
that you have to play through a gimmick fest to get to, but no, it's cool. It's
How else are you gonna get to those zoomers?
well, yeah, the Zoomers that appreciate PS1 and PS2 graphics.
Yeah,
Born
exactly.
after Spyro.
Yeah, well,
Oh my gosh. I
imagine
forgot there
being
are people born after
after
Spyro.
AS, if you will.
Yes.
Imagine being young. I can't
Before the
relate.
Spyro era, after the Spyro era.
When games got bad, Enter the Dragonfly is when dimensions separated.
I traded all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards for that game.
It's a fair
And I
trade.
still think I came out on top even though that game's terrible.
Yeah. Well, not to insult our hardcore nerd audience, but we don't have a lot of love for Yu-Gi-Oh. Okay. Well, I think I'm good with what I've been playing, so we can get on the news there.
Well, let's kick it off with bad news BioWare's this week, as EA Chief Studios Officer Laura Miele confirms the departure of the studio's general manager Casey Hudson and Dragon Age executive producer Mark Darrah just months after the two appeared in a promotional video for the next Dragon Age game. Both Hudson and Darrah posted their own letters of departure on the company's official blog, wherein they reiterate their lengthy stays at the company since the 90s in Darrah's case, and their reassurances that it remains in good hands. Meanwhile, Jeff Keighley of the Game Awards announced just one day later that BioWare's next Dragon Age game would be featured at the awards show on December 10th. How have these departures affected your perception of BioWare and your anticipation of their upcoming games? Personally, I kind of think it's too early to tell one way or the other. I don't really get hyped about games after Spore, but it's not looking good. The signs are not positive. The stars are misaligned.
Well, in my eyes, BioWare has been dead, the BioWare we know, for quite a while.
Yeah.
So this is
Yes,
more of
since like Mass Effect 1.
yeah. So this is more
No,
of
Mass
a
Effect 2.
Oh,
yeah.
sorry.
Oh, well, look, we're in the minority on Mass Effect 2, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Uh,
Trust me, I'm aware.
But okay, for the record, just putting out there again for anyone that doesn't know, we do not like Mass Effect 2.
It.
We
So,
like
let's
things about
clarify
Mass
that.
Effect 2. We like
Yeah,
things
yeah.
about Mass Effect 2. We don't like the way that it dumbs down pretty much everything about the first game.
The story is bad.
The story spins its wheels and tells a bunch of very samey personal stories.
Yes.
The
Yeah.
gameplay is homogenized for the era.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, did you realize that Jacob has daddy issues?
Oh,
Just like
my.
Oh
every
my
other
god.
character.
Did you know that Miranda also has daddy issues? Does anybody in this room not have amnesia?
You mean daddy issues?
Oh, yes.
Either way. Yeah, but so our BioWare is long dead, and I look at this as like this is more of a EA is like it's just EA, but with a different name.
Hashtag not my Bioware.
Yeah, pretty much. So do I think these people would have had any big impact on the next Dragon Age? Probably not. So
I
I'm
gotta
confused.
disagree with you there real quick. I mean, he was the executive producer. I'm sure he would have. Mark Darrah
okay,
was the executive producer of Dragon Age. I'm sure he would have had a huge impact. But
fair enough. Fair enough.
did you watch that? Yeah, you watched that promotional video a few months ago. We talked about it on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yes, I did.
He and Casey Hudson are the first two people to talk on that video.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
wow.
they're talking about how great the game is.
And
gonna
they'll be gone. I to be honest, I don't even know how much of that game has been developed or worked on. Like,
Yeah.
who can even say? So, I can't say whether this will have a big impact on it or not. If I was a Dragon Age fan, I'd probably be a little skeptical. But I'd be skeptical if the game is even going to come out in the next 30 years if I was a Dragon Age fan. So,
Maybe it speaks to the infinite time compression of 2020, but I feel like Casey Hudson just got back there. So it's weird to me because he came in kind of like a fixer after Andromeda. And, he was always someone that people pointed to, like, all right, he's going to get this ship back on track. And I don't feel like the ship is back on track, and he's already out.
was he canceled for something?
No.
Because
No.
when he got fired, I saw someone on Twitter say, "Oh, fuck Casey Hudson." I was like, "For what? What did
I
he
don't
do?"
think he's
Well,
particularly
this-
well liked by certain people in the Bioware community. But
So the scuttlebutt about Casey Hudson is that he he and the lead writer of Mass Effect 3 unilaterally wrote that crappy ending.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, like the two of them got in a room without the rest of the writers
Yeah.
and
That's
just
what I've always
banged it
associated him
out.
with. Yeah.
He also, before the game came out, he was talking about how they have like a billion different endings, and it's not, you just pick A, B, C. It's way more complex. It's something no one's ever seen before. And then after that, he talked about how, it was actually really high art, and people just didn't understand it.
Yep,
So that's
that
why
is
he
who
gets
I
a lot of
remember.
flack.
Yeah, that's why
Okay.
when he came in as a fixer, I was like,
Well, part of me wonders how much of that was his fault, or how much of that was like EA. Like, all right,
well, I think some of it was his fault.
no, I'm sure, but
I've always associated him with that era of Bioware.
uh,
Hmm.
I was not aware that he was the mastermind behind that ending, so that explains that.
Mastermind might be a generous
Well,
term.
yes, I understand, but and for
Man
the
Mastermind.
with the pin.
and I don't know if either of you have actually have seen the quote unquote new ending for Mass Effect 3.
I haven't. I bought the
The
game several years after, and I still got the old ending.
Yeah, the first time I saw the new ending was last year.
Mm. How was
And bad still,
it?
but it
Yeah,
adds context. so,
yeah.
so
I watched the vignettes they give you on YouTube for the choices that I had made, and I thought, this doesn't really fix it.
no, it
This is
doesn't
just
fix
like
it.
dragging it out.
It just kind of explains it a little more.
I
But
remember thinking the ending couldn't possibly be as bad as people told me it was. And then when I saw Joker and Edie walk out of the ship onto that jungle planet, and I realized that was the last frame of the Mass Effect adventure, I had this moment of just really deep existential emptiness. Like, oh, what is it all for? This is what
What
I
am I
waited all
fighting
these years for.
for?
This
don't get me started
sucks.
on Joker and Edie.
I hate Edie.
That's
I
so
hate
Yep,
Joker.
embarrassing.
yep,
Those are my least favorite
The
characters
yep.
fact they
by
needed to
far.
make the ship person like I imagine it was like some boardroom meeting was like, well, Normandy is kind of like its own character, and then some guy's like, that's it. I know what it can do, and
Yeah, we're gonna make it a hot robot with a camel toe.
yeah, and Joker, we got to make sure everyone knows he's not gay. So let's make him hook up with the ship. God.
I don't think there was ever a moment in Mass Effect 1 where I talked to Joker and thought, you know what I wanted more of? Joker.
Yeah,
I don't think there's
yeah. He was
ever
an
even one
annoyance.
second where I thought, wow, I'd like to know more about him and have more time dedicated to him. I know he's voiced by Seth
Yeah, I was gonna
Green.
say it helps that he was voiced by Seth
So I
Green.
get it. I
So
know why they ended up spending more time with him, but I don't know who their audience was for that because I always nothinged him.
I was saying the reason you felt that way is because it was voiced by
Oh,
Seth
I
Green.
don't.
Like you were like,
No,
oh,
it's not that. It's more like his character just doesn't have that
no, it
interest.
makes you
He's
think
like,
like, oh, Chris Griffin and Robot
yeah,
Chicken.
yeah.
No, thank
He
you.
was just a pilot. He was just the pilot. He wasn't that funny. He wasn't that smart. You have this infinite galaxy with all these crazy cool characters like Garrus, and then you spend time with, just like plain ass white redhead. Like, come on.
Yeah,
Oh no, his bones were broken. He wasn't playing. He
Oh,
couldn't move
he
without
couldn't?
breaking his bones. That was like his major
yeah.
character
Are you
trait.
He
serious?
had bonitis. You didn't
Yeah,
know this?
yeah, he
No.
literally had
That's why he's
bonitis.
always in the chair.
Yeah,
I just
that's
thought he was
why.
lazy.
No, like that scene in Mass Effect, I think 2. No, it's 3. When you're like controlling Joker and you're walking around, like that's why he's limping because he
Yeah,
can't
that's why
Oh,
walk
he's
normal.
hobbling.
I don't remember that scene. This reminds me of
Really?
when you told me about Legion, and I said, who?
God,
Because I just left him in my ship to die.
like I'm not messing with those fuckers.
I just missed the line of dialogue that's like, hey, you should go up there and revive this guy. I was just like, let's go save the universe.
They're actually gonna tell me you didn't punch the journalist as Shepard.
I didn't. I did not punch the journalist, and I never had sex.
Well, I know that.
It's
Um,
my most famous. I feel like I played Mass Effect wrong in pretty much every way,
dead.
which is why my opinion about it is sound to be discarded. But still, Mass Effect
Um,
1 is great.
regarding Dragon Age 4, this special look is going to be a lot of storyboards. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah,
special look isn't like. It's not really confidence inspiring, I wouldn't say.
No,
yeah.
well, it reminds me of when Fallen Order or Andromeda, I should say, was first revealed,
Yes.
and it was just
Well,
storyboards and like stuff that
Little
didn't tell you anything about the game.
5-second CGI trailer.
Yeah,
yeah, we're thinking
Yeah.
about making a new Dragon Age game.
But Dragon Age 4 has been quote unquote in development for I think 3 years now. So at this point, you should have something to show beyond
Well,
storyboards.
it's been rebooted multiple times, just like Anthem, just like Destiny.
That's also not very confidence inspiring.
So I don't know when this game is going to come out. My gut said 2022, and that's because they rush it. They go like, "Fuck it, we gotta get it done." But
Huh.
if you want a complete game that's not fucked, it would have to be a lot later than that, I think. But this is based
So,
on nothing. This is
what's the
guesswork.
last game you played that made you think BioWare was still worth paying attention to?
Retroactively, because I don't think I
No, no,
hated Mass
no. That
Effect
doesn't
2.
count.
Um, well then, I think when I first played Mass Effect 3, I did not hate it as much as everyone
Okay.
else did.
All right. Yeah. You
For
didn't
me, it
like
would
Dragon
be
Age
Mass
Inquisition?
Effect 2 because I was thinking this one's not great, but surely the third one will be better, right?
Hmm. Yes. The Last Jedi syndrome.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2 is a good answer because that was the
Yeah.
first one I think that was kind of like EA branded. Was
Mm-hmm.
that or Dragon Age first? I don't know.
I still enjoyed Mass Effect 3 for the dumb action movie that it was.
Yeah, there were parts
But
that I liked at the time.
but it seemed even then it seemed like as someone who wasn't a big BioWare honk by any means, I certainly felt like boy, this is a far cry from even KOTOR and especially Neverwinter
Mm-hmm.
Nights.
Oh
Like
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
this is we are not in Kansas anymore on this one.
Well, it's just when I went back to play those games, it exposed to me like how
Yeah.
how just middling Mass Effect 2 and 3 are. Well, I hope that this Dragon Age is good for my wife's
Yeah, I
sake.
hope so. I always
She
thought Dragon Age was at least a cool idea.
I know that she's been waiting for new Dragon Age for a long time, so I
Yes.
want it to be good. So, but I
Yes.
am just skeptical about EA. So,
You think you have right to be skeptical of EA.
yeah. Look forward to your storyboards on Thursday.
Yeah.
Please look forward to them.
Best case scenario is like that World of Warcraft presentation from Gamescom.
Worst case scenario?
Yes.
No, I said what's worst case scenario?
Worst case scenario. We'd like to announce that Dragon Age 4 is canceled.
Oh,
Enjoy the Game Awards.
there we go. Well, we just had to get the bad news out front.
Special look at the corpse.
I really felt like
Before.
I felt like we needed to prepare our audience for Dragon Age, and then start the show by letting them know it isn't
Yeah,
happening.
we'll let you down easy.
It's our public service.
But here's all that we worked on.
Here's what could have happened. They should really, instead of remaking Mass Effect, which those games all look kind of fine for their time, and I mean, I think some of the effects of Mass Effect 1 make it at least kind of charming to look at. They really should have remade Dragon Age 1, because that game
Mm-hmm.
Game's ugly.
looks like wet butt. Like
So
that
does
is
Dragon Age 2.
oh, Dragon Age 1 is the like I remember buying that game for like $2 at GameStop because I heard so much, popping that on my PS3 and thinking it would look like Mass Effect. And the first scene happened and I was just like, "Whoa! What? This is like a PS2 game? Come on. These people are hideous."
Well, that game was in development for a very long time.
It was, I know. So
Mm-hmm.
I didn't learn that until after the fact. But I was like, how did nobody ever warn me that this game is like the ugliest game of all time? That could use a remake.
I agree,
Yeah.
but that game also it plays very archaically, so they would want to change everything about it, and that is a
That's
no
true.
go.
But only Dragon Age 1 plays archaically. Dragon Age 2
Yes,
has all that actiony stuff.
but I'm saying like the people
Like
that
the
like
Cat's
Dragon Age
Crave.
1 would
Yeah.
probably like burn Bioware HQ down if they
All those
changed.
people have moved on. They're playing Pillars of Eternity.
Well, on the other side of the world, Japanese RPG powerhouse Square Enix pulled Dragon Quest XI from the PS4 and Steam storefronts, only to replace it with a backport of the version available on the Switch. While the Switch version does have some exclusive content, it also features noticeably worse graphics to accommodate Nintendo's console. Have either of you played Dairy Queen 11? I looked at
Yes.
my Steam library and I still have the original non-Switched version,
Yes. And
but
I
I
think
haven't
you will
touched it.
permanently have that. So I think you're safe.
Yes, I played Dragon Quest XI on PS4. I think in whatever year it came out. I think it was 2018, and it was my second favorite game of that year behind Valkyria Chronicles 4 because I'm a crazy person. Um, Dragon Quest XI is a great game, fantastic, and it's also like looks amazing. So it's very, I don't know, square, I guess, to release a port of a port. um, like if you look at the side by sides, like the Switch one is noticeably uglier. So it's a goddamn shame because the big selling point of Dragon Quest XI S is the orchestral soundtrack because the big controversy with the PS4, the original release, was that it had MIDIs instead of like the real music because the composer is some sort of weird racist. Um, so
Ugh.
so S fixed that problem, but as a result, now there's no definitive version of Dragon Quest XI. You either have the ugly version with the right music and all the extra features, or the really, really good looking version that has the bad music. So,
Yeah, it's like it. You know, you gave me a lot of guff the other day when I said something about Square being kind of a bumbling behemoth of a company. But this is exactly the kind of thing I was referring to.
this is
Here,
incompetence.
yeah, here you have a beautiful game on the PlayStation 4, very stylish. They port it to the Switch with all these cool features, and they downgrade it, and that's understandable
It's a
because
Switch, yeah.
yeah, it's a Switch. It has to be, and you know, it should be noted that the game doesn't look bad. I mean, it looks worse, but I think Dragon Quest XI occupies a similar space as Wind Waker, where you know it's just got a really great style, and it's gonna look great no matter where you play it.
Right.
You know, even if it's gonna look less great in certain places. But there was always this idea of like, oh man, I've got the definitive version in some ways, but I also have a version that looks worse. It'd be really cool if I had a version that looked good or great and had these features. And so when they announced Dragon Quest XI was coming to the Xbox or Dragon Quest XI S, oh my gosh, buddy, I know it's very frustrating. Um, when they announced Dragon Quest XI S was going to come to Xbox and PlayStation and PC, I think everybody kind of reasonably thought, oh, well, they're going to do the ultimate definitive version.
Right.
And I kind of got a whiff of this a few months ago. Somebody mentioned, no, they're actually porting the Switch game. And I thought, no. So when it dropped on Thursday on Game Pass, I went hunting and people were posting side by sides. And sure enough, it's a ported Switch game. And again, it looks a little bit better. It's got a great style and it's now at a higher resolution. But I mean, you can't help but kind of look over the PS4 version and think, "Oh man, I
Like,
really
oh, the
wish
lighting's all fucked up.
I really wish this looked like this." I mean, I'm
Yes, if it
playing,
looked like the
you know,
PS4 version, it'd be literally a 10 out of 10 game.
right?
Like,
Oh yeah, it's. I mean, it's such an amazing game, and that's why it's the perfect Square game because around the edges you have this total incompetence. Like you just feel like these people are lucky to get out of bed in the morning. And then the product on the other end is truly fantastic. Like you know, some have called it the best JRPG of the last generation. I don't know. Derek's the authority on that one, but
it's not,
you
but I
know,
love it.
it's certainly up there. I would say without a doubt. So it's just it's a bit of a bummer.
Well,
That
yeah,
said,
I personally thought the vanilla release on PS4 Steam
yeah,
was like damn near perfect.
yeah,
I love Dragon Quest
yeah.
11.
All this to say, this game is amazing, and I'm playing it. So they're
Yes.
winning because I'm playing this game, but I'm playing it ruefully, and especially ruefully because I have a very out of date console, and so I don't have the 60 frames per second that some people are getting. But whatever. It's an RPG.
Part of me thinks maybe this is part of like a Japanese thing, because if you remember, Square ported Chrono Trigger to Steam, and they were baffled when the Westerners did not like the graphics of the game, because the graphics were based on the phone port of Chrono Trigger, which is a lot uglier than the SNES version, in my opinion, and
Yeah.
everyone's opinion.
Well, it's one of those like Halo 4 kind of things that just saps a lot of the
Right, it's the personality is
character.
taken away.
Yeah.
They also did this with Final Fantasy VI, and if you've played the original and mobile Final Fantasy VI, you'll see that the mobile saps the soul away from it. But Japan was completely baffled by the Western reaction. They ended up patching the original graphics back in. I played the Steam version of Chrono Trigger at the beginning of 2020, which feels like 80 years ago, but it was the original graphics when I played it. So part of me thinks that maybe this will get patched eventually because I feel like it's a lot less complicated than it because it's just like turning it back. But who knows? I don't actually know. Regardless, it's a bummer because you have an opportunity like this could have been like the definitive version of a great game, and it's as it stands, it is flawed. And truth be told, I don't hate the midis from the PS4 version. I think they sound all right. So I would not fault anyone for sticking with the vanilla release.
Well, you don't have a choice though. So
Well, I have a
unless you're like
choice.
you and you own the physical copy, and
I do have a choice. Thank you very
yes,
much.
yeah, you have a choice, and Setzer, of course, bought it on Steam before it got upgraded, so he has a choice. But if you're someone who has an Xbox, you never had a chance. So,
Well, luckily,
yeah,
I have the game on Switch, so if I feel like playing with the
sure.
ugly graphics, I have an excuse. Like, well, it's a Switch game, so
Yeah,
what do you want from me?
yeah. I don't think there's a bad place to play it. It's just kind of a shame you can't play it in the. There's no true definitive version.
Well, the real shame is that one, they delisted the original, which
Yes.
is bullshit, and two, like this is not like this is a full price full price in quotes $39.99 release. Like, I think they should have offered it as DLC to people that own the original. Like, you pay $15 to get the extra content. I think a full price release is kind
Pay
of
this
bullshit.
money to get worse graphics but more
Sure,
content.
yeah, but I mean, you know what I mean. Like, it's
Yeah.
it's it's bullshit. So
Oh yeah, no, I hate it, and I hate that they've done it to a game that is, just really remarkable around all around.
if this is EA, I would be out here shouting them down, saying this is some anti-consumer bullshit, and it is the same case here. It is bullshit. So, just want to get that out of the
Yeah,
way.
yeah. Again, most people in Japan probably just happy playing it on a Switch
Yeah,
or a
I
mobile
think so.
device.
I
So,
think that is the
they're
case.
probably like,
They're
who
probably like,
cares?
yeah, they're like these dumb Westerners and their graphics.
Yeah.
Well, in similarly baffling Japanese news, Nintendo suddenly canceled the live stream of this week's Splatoon 2 North American Open after several competing teams changed their names to messages of defiance against the company's previous takedown of a Melee tournament live stream. As the consummate Nindoodlers, how do you feel about their way of managing the community here?
It's bad. It's
Yeah.
censorship. It's like when Blizzard cracked down on Hong Kong stuff. Obviously on a way lesser scale.
Yes, it's very different. Free Melee is different
No,
than
but I mean
free
like
Hong
it's
Kong.
it's but it's similarly
Yes.
stifling speech is
Yeah.
what I
Oh,
mean.
it's lousy.
So even though again, like me and Cheston here are kind of like, all right, Melee people, maybe choose a different game, but you should still be able to express those sentiments. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So this is bullshit. There's no defending it. So Nintendo, get it together.
It's not surprising that they would go after the Katniss Everdeen and the Peeta Malark of the Splatoon scene,
Okay.
holding up their three fingers in defiance of Nintendo. That's all I can think of when I heard, the act of defiance. Like, oh, they're holding up three fingers.
Cheston with his YA references.
Hey, man. I think those books are out of fashion now, so I think I'm cool.
No, they made a new one.
I know they did, and I've heard it's alright. And I didn't like the other two books, so I'm interested to read one that I hear is okay.
But yeah, I mean, this is stupid. Just let them have their little like. First of all, your rewards. I think first place got like $25. So like, this is such a small stakes bullshit tournament. Who cares? Just let them have their little protest. Who cares? Like, do you think like someone watching is gonna like, oh shit, I better go pirate Melee because these people have free Melee on there? Probably not.
Well, better question. Do you think anybody's watching a Splatoon 2 tournament?
No, I don't. I can't think of anything like less interesting to
Can you
watch.
think of anything? Can you think of a single game that you can picture like being less fun in a competitive sense than
No,
Splatoon 2?
Rocket League.
Oh no, you're wrong. Competitive Rocket League is nuts. Competitive Rocket League is wacky.
Well, I have a friend that's a esports teacher, and I suggested that her esports people transition from Rocket League to Hyrule Warriors, and and that was met with much derision. They said, "Well, it's a lot cooler. You don't have stupid cars. You got swords." So,
Have you seen all the juggling you can do?
yeah,
A
way
thousand
better.
kills.
It's 1,000, and in Rocket League you can't even kill one person. I mean, come on.
Where's the fun in that?
Yeah, I go by body count.
Well, if you were worried about the impact of Melee tournaments on Nintendo of America's bottom line,
It
rest
wasn't.
easy.
Yeah, don't worry about that.
The Entertainment Software Association published a study this week that shows video games contribute $90 billion annually to the US economy and support roughly 429,000 jobs. A previously released report stated that 214 million Americans play video games with an average age of 35 to 44. Did you see anything that jumped out to you in this report? You know, personally, I was really surprised to see that Minnesota, Idaho, and Illinois had so many games industry jobs.
Yeah, that's a little surprising.
Yeah, that
I
is
think
surprising.
Illinois. I think Devolver is based out of there.
Well, and Minnesota is where the Game Informer headquarters is slash was, depending on when someone's listening to this. So, I could see studios building around the most subscribed to gaming industry magazine ever.
Bullshit.
It is.
I mean, it
So
is, but it's only
it's a
because of
shame.
GameStop.
It's a shame.
It's the worst one too.
I love
God,
Dan Reichert and all, but it's a shame.
yeah. If you compare it to EGM, just a
Yeah.
complete,
Yes.
complete
No.
difference in quality.
Yeah. Illinois. The only I didn't that really surprised me because the only game development house I knew out of Illinois was in Champaign. The people who made Saints Row.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Yeah.
they were in Champaign. That's it. That's all I knew. But I guess Chicago is kind of big, so
Yeah, who would have guessed?
yeah,
Yeah, who turns out this game industry is really big.
yeah. I'm
So
shocked.
it's kind of interesting that an industry is so big, and I feel like politicians still know very little about it. Is
Yeah.
bizarre.
Well, the average age is 40, not 80, so
That's a good point.
But
so they're not exactly on the cutting edge. It's weird to have grown up with it though and see it reach these heights. Like, you think back when we were
yeah,
kids,
yeah,
and it's like we played games, and some people at school played games, but there was a definitive there were certainly kids who didn't play games.
Yes.
Now
Now
you'd
it feels
be
like everyone does.
right, like I teach, and I can tell you, like now it's just an assumption that every kid plays Fortnite or Roblox or Minecraft or something Among
yeah.
Us.
Well, the report
Yeah,
did say 70% of people under 18 play video games now.
yeah,
Well, I think
yeah,
games have never been more affordable and accessible.
yeah.
Because if you think back in the day, I feel like for the Super Nintendo there wasn't really like a set price for things.
No, there
Like
wasn't.
you
No,
could get like Kirby Superstar for like
no.
$90
We should go back to that.
or
But
Phallus for 40.
yeah,
So it's just
yeah,
weird.
yeah. It is. It is. I mean, you think about Game Pass. Like I went on Game Pass when I had to re-up my subscription so my wife could play Tetris Effect, and grabbed like 40 games, and I was like, man, can you imagine when we were kids? Like, you'd get a game, and that was your game for 2 months at least. I mean, if you're lucky, really, you're looking until your birthday or Christmas. And now it's just like,
Well,
now there's so many games.
there's
It's
so much that's free to play, and there's like cheap games. Like the most popular game in the world right now is $4.99. So there's more ways to play, and as a result, very profitable industry. I mean, I guess it's no surprise that modern stuff doesn't appeal to us as much in a lot of
well,
cases.
I mean,
But
some modern stuff. We have
some
our
does.
dalliances, but the things that are probably padding this bottom line the most are probably not to our
Probably shit that we
personal
wouldn't touch.
tastes.
But
Exactly.
times change, right?
Yeah. Yeah. They sure do.
Well, speaking of times changing, The Guardian's Keith Stewart writes about a study to be performed by doctors Jennifer Corbet and Jape Munich of Brunel University London regarding inverted controls in video games. Scientists aren't sure why some people prefer inverted controls. They speculate that maybe it has something to do with the games you grew up with. A lot of
It's
games in the
gotta
80s and
be.
90s had inverted by default. But they think there may also be some kind of underlying neurological reason, like your handedness. Dr. Corbet speculates that finding out may inform everything from game design to user experience for things like baggage scanners or even medical x-rays. I know I can't wrap my hand around, or my, well, hand or head around inverted controls at all, even in flight games like Squadrons. What about you guys?
Can I posit a hypothesis?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, psychopathy, I think, is the key determinant. Like anytime, I think Derek used to invert some things, and anytime I would inherit one of those settings, it would feel like a crime was committed on my console. So, yeah, I'm gonna go psychopathy.
Yeah, I did used to do it. I don't know
Yeah.
why.
Well, and really, in all seriousness, it might be. I think the roots of it are in the original console wars, because I believe Nintendo historically has been an inverted company, though they've changed. I think Miyamoto's even joked about it when, God, way back, somebody made a reference to people who play with non-inverted controls, and he said they must have been Genesis players. So I think there might be some historical truth to that with older folks, you know.
Well, here's a little. Let me give you a wacky theory here.
Okay.
Um, I think one of the first games to do inverse controls would be Pilot Wings because it's one of the first ones to
Yes.
like. It's one of the first ones that has like that kind of like I don't know semi pseudo 3D
Yeah. The
environments.
Microsoft Flight Simulator of its
Right.
time.
Well, if you think about it, it was trying to be a flight game, and
Yes.
planes, you think of them taking off, you pull back to
Yeah.
take off. So they were trying to mimic planes, is what I think was
Right.
going on.
Well, it made
And
sense with Pilot Wings.
and at some yes, and since that was the first one, people copied it. And I don't know if it was actually the first one, but that's the first one I know of. So I think that's what made it catch on, like trying to do it like a plane does it, and it just took people a long time to figure out that hey, this is really fucking stupid. It doesn't. It feels weird.
I think you're
So
not crazy. I think
yeah,
there's probably something to that. A pioneering game in the 3D space
yeah.
would be very influential.
So
And I think Star Fox on the SNES also was
right, and
inverted.
that's another plane game. So
Right.
they're trying to
And
make it like
another
that.
early 3D game on consoles, at least. So
Right. So they were trying to make
probably
it
some of that.
feel like something in the real world.
Yeah.
When I try to play inverted now, it immediately is jarring, and I can't get it like accustomed to it. So,
I
uh,
can I can see someone inverting their y-axis. When
uh,
someone inverts their
they
x-axis,
should be
that's
shot.
that's where I really draw the line. That's where I become concerned about them as a human being.
They're war criminals on par with George W. Bush or something.
Right? They're just like, oh, like I can understand like someone going, well, no, I'm controlling the camera, and if I tilt the camera up, I'd actually be looking more down. That whatever. But side to side, no, that's silly.
I
That's
was,
silliness.
yeah, I think I was playing. I think Cold Steel 4 had vertical controls really silly, and I was like, I cannot get used to this. I gotta change it right now. It's just, so inversion this doesn't work for me.
I enjoy the fact that this group is approaching people with inverted controls like there's some kind of weird subgroup of human, where it's like we need to
Proper.
understand why these people are like this.
That's right. They need to run like a New York Times op-ed on like this is why I invert controls.
Yeah,
My
I,
brave stance on inversion.
I I will never ever 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 invert my controls by choice.
I
So
used to get it, but now I do not.
yeah, you did used to be an inverted person. I think you were very much a developer's vision kind of person. So when a developer inverted their controls by default, you were very accommodating.
Right, but
But at some
now,
point, you realized that that was really not that important.
no, it's really not. There are other battles to fight,
Yes.
Other
uh,
fights to finish.
like anime titties. That's the
Yeah.
important battle.
There we go.
Well, speaking of the way we play, Patrick Klepek of Vice writes about confidential documents distributed to developers last year showing that PS4 players spend more time playing single-player games than online multiplayer games, despite the common perception to the contrary. It also outlined players' biggest hurdles, an inability to gauge the time commitment required amid their busy lives. The PS5's activities and game help features are intended to, quote unquote, change should I start playing to which part should I start playing. Derek, you weren't a big fan of the reactive triggers. Have you had a chance to play with activities and game help? Do you
I
think
have messed
they?
with this a little bit.
Yeah,
and
did they hit the mark?
I like it actually. I think it's a very interesting idea to lay out all of the things you can do and make them a click away. Like when you're playing Astro's Playroom, if you want to like do one of the speed runs, you can walk to it or you can press the guide button and click on it, which I think is really convenient. I I do not. One of my pet peeves in some older games is like the checkpointing, where it's like I don't think it's a lot of fun that goes through environments you've clearly mastered already just to fight the one boss that is giving you trouble. I think that is archaic game design. So addressing it in this way is actually a really smart idea, because it's you have the option if you want to traverse it like an old person, you can. But if you would rather just jump right to where you want to be, you also can, and I think that's great. I think this is a very important thing, and this it's interesting that like Sony came out and said this because I feel like we've kind of known about this for a while. This is gonna make me sound like a weird person, but when Final Fantasy X-2 came out, one of the
Here we
things
go.
one of the things that they addressed was like people sit down and they don't know how long a game is going to take. So they made Final Fantasy X-2 a mission-based game, so
Oh
you can
yes.
kind of play for like 30 minutes at a time and get your fill in, and then move on to do something
Are you
else.
saying that Final Fantasy X-2 is one of the most important games of all time?
Yes, I'm saying it's ahead of its time. It kind of knew that people were like, well, I don't have 2 hours, so I better not play this. I'm gonna go do something else and spend like 20 minutes on my multiplayer
Boy, I
game.
hope this game isn't 20 hours long.
Right. So
Yeah.
so Ten 2 had the same notion in place where you can go you can go play for your 20 minutes and then go do something
Yeah,
else.
get in, see titties, get out.
So yes, exactly. You do your hot spring mini game and then go, or your back massage mini game. Very
What?
famous in that Ten 2. Did you not know
Oh,
that, Cheston? There's
no.
a yeah. Yuna rubs like the main female lady's back at some point in Ten 2. The mini
Wait,
game. It's a
Yuna
lot of
is the
fun.
main lady.
The main villain lady.
Oh,
Um,
what?
yeah. So that's a fun game. But
Is
yeah.
it?
So sure. um, but uh, yeah. This I feel like this idea has been around for a long time, and I think this is a really smart approach to game design.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm definitely kind of jealous as a PC player.
I think Spider-Man does it too.
Yeah, that was what I was going to reference because I think
Hmm.
it was actually Patrick himself who said like, jumping in for side missions is now really,
Right.
quick.
Because one of the things on Spider-Man for the PS4 is like I 100% of that game I platinumed it, but sometimes you would like see a training mission that was like, oh shit, this is like 2,000 meters away. It's gonna take forever to get there. Now you just press the guide button and say click it, and then you're good to
Yeah,
go.
that seems all right. I
Uh,
could get behind that for
yeah.
side stuff.
So right.
Story wise, I wouldn't do that. I actually
No,
never fast
but
traveled
but
in
I think
Spider-Man,
it's but I think it's
but
important to have the option there. You know what I mean? Like that way, if you want to play it, like if you want to go the long way, it's like how like fast travel's an option. If you want to travel around, you can, but fast travel's convenient and there for you. So it's good stuff. And I also enjoy the percentage. Like you're this close to getting this trophy or doing this task. Because I opened it for Spider Man. It's like you're like 20% of the way to this trophy. It's like, well, if I play for like 30 more minutes, I'm sure I could get it. So I think putting the data out there is a great idea. Great.
that
Yeah.
feature would make Fallen Order just about perfect. If you could, say hop to your ship when you've parked it very far away, that would be kind of great.
Well, hey, maybe in the squeakle on PS5.
So that'll do it for this week. You can reach us on email at alltodaypodcast@gmail.com or on Twitter at alltodaypod. This is Derek,
I'm Setzer.
And your boy Cheston.
and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Adios.
See ya.